Welcome to another episode of Exit Philosophy. He's Mal, I'm Griff, and we're ready to go. The Jays are on top of the American League, and
On
the
fire.
Milwaukee Brewers are on top of the National League. And who would have bet that at spring training? So we'll talk about that and a lot of other things.
Like the mid 80s.
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, I'd like to thank everyone for hanging in there and subscribing to Exit Philosophy and griffthepitch.com. And if you enjoy this, like, share, and leave a review. We'd much appreciate that. The good news to start with, Mal, is the return of Buck Martinez to the broadcast booth. I think he's joining Dan Schulman when they get to Dodger Stadium, so that'll be good news. I know that Buck has never been more popular, and it's not in comparison because the guys, Joe Siddle and Caleb, have been doing a pretty good job in his absence. But it's always great to have Buck back.
It really is. I mean, Buck's kind of become the voice of the Blue Jays with all due respect to everyone else that's been a part of the broadcast. He's been there for so long, right? And he's just that voice that he's had such a national presence as well. So I mean, it kind of reminds me as time goes on, you just associate Buck with the Blue Jays the much way you did, Tony Kubek back in the days or Don Chevrier. So kudos to Buck, and I don't think there's anyone, that's not happy that he's back. So it'll be exciting to have Buck back and just that familiar voice. I know everybody's kind of looking forward to it. And more importantly, he must be feeling well, which is obviously the most important thing. So I'm excited to have Buck and Dan back in the saddle, as they say. And great job. Siddle's fantastic. The guys did a great job. Uh, you know, the broadcast certainly didn't diminish with Joe there or even Caleb filling in on occasion. So good job of those guys as well.
I think one of the turning points for Buck Martinez's popularity was, I think it was 2017 when Edwin Encarnacion left, and he didn't have to butcher the pronunciation of his name 5 times a day.
He always struggled with Eddie's
Oh
name.
my God, yeah. Let's get back to what's going on with the Blue Jays. And I think one of the big stories is Bo Bichette and Bo's resurgence as a hitter, resurgence as a clutch hitter, being taken out of the leadoff spot, which we both agreed for a long time was not a good spot for a guy who likes hacking early in the count, especially when you're getting into a ball game. But here he is now leading the major leagues in base hits by a lot and producing runs, a lot of them. And, the 6 RBI or the 2 home runs, 6 RBI performance the other night in Colorado. That's just an indicator of what Bo may provide down the stretch. And that's a key part of it. I mean, do you believe that this changes anything about Bo's relationship with the Toronto Blue Jays, or is he just waiting to walk through the door, or did he bet on himself to remain a Blue Jay but letting it ride to the end of the season?
Oh, I think there's no doubt he was betting on himself the whole, all these years. I mean, he could have signed a contract years ago. They offered him many times, just like they did Vladdy. If you don't think so, you're foolish. They just haven't been able to come to an agreement for substantial dollars as well. I think Bo had decided that he was going to test free agency, and I don't think anything will change. The only thing I think that could possibly keep Bo, in Toronto is the fact that they're winning now. That's the only thing that could change Bo's mind, and I don't think it will. Um, but that being said, if there's an avenue for Bo Bichette to remain the shortstop here, it's because he feels like they're a contender for the next, 10 years, if that's what he gets out of this next contract. My belief is he's going to test free agency, see what's out there, and he'll probably be on his way. I still think that's the most likely scenario, but the winning certainly must give everybody a little bit of pause on what's going on here. There's no question.
Yeah, I don't think that his path to free agency or his path to his next contract was tied in any way to Vlad's.
No.
I'm not sure happy he is for Vlad that he signed a $500 million deal and Bo's still playing out his final year of his contract. But if that was his plan all along, which we both agree was in the back of his mind, I don't think that the situation with Vlad and all of a sudden being the face of the franchise for the next 15 years and being promoted as such by ownership, I don't think that that affects Bo and his relationship with the Blue Jays and with Ross Atkins and with trying to sign a long-term extension. I don't think that affects it at all. I don't think it's changed to the negative in any way.
No, I agree. I just think they've probably, I think this has run its course, if to be honest with you. And I don't mean that in any horribly negative light. I just think both parties wouldn't. I think it's okay if sometimes people get a new change of scenery, and good on Bo for playing his ass off, and good on Ross for getting this team to where it is. I just think this is a scenario where both parties probably need to go in a new direction rather than sign up for 10 more years of what they have had for the last almost 10. You know what I mean? So, and there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that. And I think that's where we're headed.
Yeah, at the end of last season, at the end of the 24 season, when Bo was injured, when Bo was not performing well, look down the list of teams that might be able to use Bo as a starting shortstop, as a centerpiece for their offense and for their lineup. And there weren't that many
Yeah,
contenders that
I
were
know.
in that boat. But to me, when the Yankees came to Rogers Center and they swept them and Anthony Volpe played shortstop like me, that was a key moment in terms of, hey, wait a second. Bo Bichette might fit nicely in the Bronx in 2026 and beyond. And we've talked about it. What's your opinion on him being a Yankee?
Oh, I mean, if there ever was what seemed like a perfect fit for New York, it's kind of Bo and his attitude and his desire to win and just how hard he plays the game. He's just, he feels like your typical Yankee. I mean, you've got to think with the way they've somewhat soured on Volpe, I assume. I mean, it's just obviously not gone
How could you
well.
not? Yeah.
um, that they would be very, very interested in Bo to play, play in that role at short. And that would be quite a coup for the Yankees, exactly what they do, taking them from a division rival. I mean, it just, it's all lining up that way. It's not to say that it's going to happen, but does he not feel like a typical Yankee to you? I mean,
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure the Yankees are about to rewrite their recent history, and they did their cleanup act. There, you're now allowed to have a short beard as long as it's well groomed, or what they said it was for Devin Williams, but
yeah,
right now they wish Devin Williams would grow his beard longer so they could jettison him, throw him overboard. So that maybe they'll argue that this was done a year in advance for Bo, and Bo trimmed down his long hair, and he keeps that neat and tidy, whatever
he
facial hair
does.
he's got. Yeah, it is to me, and we've talked about it. It's a match made in heaven in terms of a front runner to sign Bo Bichette. I mean, the Red Sox. You're not a big Trevor Story fan,
New.
but the Yankees it does seem like a perfect fit, and it's in the division, so the Yankees would feel like they're taking away from a division rival, even though Michael Kay and others don't think that the Jays are a true first place team. But yeah, so maybe that is the way. Anyway, it's something to keep an eye on.
Are you, if you're Devin Williams, are you not showing up clean shaven today?
Yeah,
And
that's a good
for
point.
vibes and karma. You know what I mean?
Right. Absolutely. Now, question about Bo is, does he need, and I know ego wise, you need to believe that you're a legitimate top 10 major league shortstop, but could he be like a Marcus Semien and move and then find out that life is good on the other side of second base? I mean, could he move to second base or third base if the price was right as a free agent?
I, if the price is right, I don't know if the price is going to be right if he's signing as a second baseman, though. Um, Bo's one of those guys, as I've said this before. Is he the best shortstop in the game? Of course not. Is he competent though? Yes, you can win with Bo at shortstop. That's my belief. You don't need, but of course, you want the perfect player over there. But I feel like at his age, over the next few years, you're going to take away a little juice out of his game if you ask him to move. And whether you want to criticize him for that or not, I just feel like that's the reality. Will he move there eventually? Of course he will. Of course he will. Maybe in 3, 4 years, it's going to be very clear that somebody's better at the position significantly. But I think if you're signing Bo, I think he wants to sign as the shortstop. And if you ask him to move a la Rafael Devers, and I'm not saying it would be handled in the same way, clearly, I just think you take away something from the player. The kid's been playing shortstop. He's born and bred there forever and ever. And I just think it's part of his persona. And in my opinion, he's competent enough to win. And I wouldn't want to mess with that. That's just my belief. Um, if you're playing, like I said, if you're playing fantasy baseball, yeah, you move him. But that's not what this is. I mean, perhaps you disagree with me, and Simeon's a different cat. You know what I mean? So, like those guys, that's a different situation too, I think. But
Yeah,
that's
I think
both.
that I think that Bo and his representation will definitely explore those teams that want him to continue playing shortstop before they get into discussions with any team that wants him to shift position. I think that that will be the case. That being said, what you look up and Bo all of a sudden is 27 years old. He's not a kid anymore.
Nope.
And when he and Vlad came in, it was always 20, 21, 21, 22. They were moving up together, obviously stating the obvious, as I just did, that age is the same moving forward for anyone in the game. Vlad
Goes
didn't
by ones.
Vlad didn't pass him at any
No,
point.
no, it keeps going by one.
So my question is, what would be a reasonable? I mean, like you got to compare shortstop to shortstop, and the market for the shortstops is not the same as a market for a man child like Vlad Guerrero, who has such a huge ceiling, such a big upside offensively. But Bo is what Bo is, and you have to compare that to other shortstops, others at the same position. So at 27 years old, I came up with a number: 8 years times $28 million comes out to 224. Do you think there's enough contenders for his services that he could reach that?
Oh, I think you will reach that. I think that's your what seems like very fair result. I do think it could go a little higher depending on, hey, lead the majors in hits again. You know what I mean? Obviously, had the bad year the year before. Bo is fully back to what Bo is. Um, I think there could be some demand for his services, and with the money that's out there right now, you just can't deny it. I mean, look, talk about Vlad all you want and Soto and the money is there. I mean, how do you get half of what those guys are getting? Like it doesn't even make any sense, Griff. It's hard to just say Vladdy isn't a unicorn. I just don't get it. Otani's the unicorn. So if I'm Bo, I'm pushing, man. I'm a shortstop. So does 828 seem very fair and reasonable? Yes, it does. Would I be shocked if it went higher? No. I mean, clearly
Yeah.
the money's out there. Clearly it's out there because they're handing it out. So which again, to me is an alarming state on where the game's headed in the next few years. We'll get to that
Yeah.
later. But
I want to, before I say whether I think he'll make more than that or not, I'm going to see what Otani's interpreter has said as the over under.
and whatever he wants. Yeah, don't go the other way. He wasn't so good at
No, he
apparently.
was not so good at his job.
Yeah,
Uh, Maybe at translating, but not
yeah,
translating that.
translating good. Yeah,
Um,
Daenerys bad. Yeah.
the topic that you subtly referred to that we would move forward with is Rob Manfred and Bryce Harper meeting in the Phillies clubhouse as Rob Manfred goes, to, as he says, I want to visit all 30 teams and give them the State of the Union instead of going through the Players Association. I want to do it face up. And the face up ended face to face with Bryce Harper saying, get the F out of here if you're going to talk about salary cap. And I know that you and I agree on the positivity of MLB being the only industry in sports that does not have a salary cap and how healthy that is for the integrity of the game and how it has not affected adversely the competitive balance with different winners all the time and different teams making the playoffs. Do you think, how do you think that came to be that Rob Manfred will walk in and expect to be welcomed with open arms? And do you think it was a setup by Scott Boras and Bryce Harper that early in the Manfred Magical Mystery Tour of MLB that they would confront him and make it an issue?
Well, I'll leave it to you to determine whether it's a setup with Boris because, you know, certainly that wouldn't be surprising to me or you. However, I could also see Harper just being that guy. Obviously, he's got enough chutzpah at this point in his career to stand up to a small man like Rob Manfred trying to make his goodwill tour across the nation. It's awfully silly to think you're going to walk into those clubhouses and discuss something so important. There's nothing wrong with going in there and just doing a goodwill tour, but to talk about a salary cap, you should be turfed on his ear for something like that. And whether it was a setup by Boris and Harper or not, good on them. That's just those, it's just a major bargaining issue, and to bring something up like that is it's kind of foolish for Manfred, and perhaps it's also the setup from Manfred's side too. This is going to be a battle of public, public opinion too. So, most fans are ignorant on this topic and think salary caps are fine. We've been programmed and
Yeah,
programmed in North
exactly.
America to believe that's how our sports are so much fun. Boy, NFL, NFL, NFL. And God, they're the worst in my opinion. So wouldn't be surprised if the setup went both ways. Manfred, you know, as much as I have a dislike for him, he's not dumb. So you got to know what well, maybe he is, but you got to know what the reaction's going to be, right? Maybe step one in bringing this to light because Armageddon is coming. So I'm sorry to
Well,
tell everybody.
yeah, I mean, step one in bringing it to light, it's 2 years away, the end of the collective bargaining
Yeah,
agreement where they need to renegotiate. And clearly, the ownership wants to introduce a salary cap. That's clear.
yeah,
But it's 2 years in advance. And
right.
for ownership represented by Rob Manfred to be going into clubhouses and bringing it up now with 2 years to go, it reminds me of 94 because in 1992 in the offseason, Major League Baseball flew all the PR guys to Chicago to a ballroom in Chicago. I was there. I was representing the Expos, and they gave us a primer on how to talk about the collective bargaining agreement and the need for changes in arbitration and a salary cap. Salary cap was mentioned. I think they were realistic about that. But we were, as a group of 30 or however many
Yeah,
teams there were at the time, we were told never to refer to it as a players association, to always refer to it as the union because the public
negative.
doesn't like unions.
Correct.
But the players association. So that was 2 years prior to 94, which was the previous Armageddon.
Right.
And so this reminds me of that in terms of a PR campaign being waged, starting with Rob Manfred. But I think Rob Manfred might not be the right man for that task at this point in time.
I agree, but don't kid yourself. That's kind of where that's they're floating it out there because look, if you think they're happy about the Soto deal and the Otani deal and the Vladdy deal, how incredibly, um, you know, exponentially large those got in a real hurry. And the worry about the expenses, not, I mean, whether they can afford it or not, it's just how do we control our labor costs? How do we control Cohen's and those boys that they can't control? So, um, like always, they're going to be fighting to control labor costs. And here we go. Step one. Let's just float salary cap out there. And
Yeah.
here we go because the public likes salary caps. It's
Yeah.
crazy.
And like as soon as they institute a salary cap, which is never going to happen, then all of a sudden, miraculously, Major League Baseball would come up with other revenue sources that aren't covered by the agreement with the players.
Right.
And they'd be splitting all this money without having to share. And
Which
I
the
think,
NFL does.
yeah,
Which the NFL does. So if, and again, if you don't think Armageddon isn't coming for baseball, and which will be unbelievable that we finally got baseball back to, you know, a popularity that it hasn't had in a long time. If there's not a strike or a lockout or what have you, I'll be stunned. I think this is the big one coming. And boy, I agree with you. I don't think Rob Manfred's the guy you want at the helm for this, but let's see what happens.
all right, back to baseball again. The Blue Jays in Colorado, they have taken that series as we speak. Are the Jays getting enough respect for what they're doing? I think they're not, partially because their superstar isn't Vlad isn't like leading like a superstar, and their rotation, as deep and as evenly placed as it is, doesn't have anyone in the top 10 for early Cy Young voting. And their bullpen closer in 6 games gave up 18 runs, which spoils his overall record. In 43 games, he's got a 1.25 ERA.
Right.
He's got 26 saves. He's got closer numbers, except for that 6 games, and they weren't consecutive or anything.
No,
A
no.
lot of them were in June, or May. A lot of them were in May, where he may have been just finding his Jays legs again. But do you think that they are not getting the credit that they deserve, especially from national media, which I believe reflects on the Blue Jays' own fan base? Because as a nation, we love recognition from south of the border.
Yeah,
And
do you ever?
if the fans are not feeling it, not feeling the respect from American media, from national media, then they're going to be looking for the second shoe to drop. You know, they'll be looking for injuries. They'll be looking for failures. They'll be looking for Ernie Clement to fall on his face, which he did sliding into third the other day. But that's another story. Do you
Literally.
feel? I'm long-winded in this
Yeah.
question, but do you feel like they're getting the respect they deserve?
No, they're not getting the respect. Clearly, and that you got to actually understand why. Now, at the end of the day, I think that's kind of more enjoyable for Blue Jay fans. I mean, I think it's better when you're not getting the respect. I think, it's us against the world mentality. And I think you just laid out why. Let's face it, the reason they're in this position a lot of times is for the guys that we didn't think were going to be able to pull this off, and every single one of them is playing above their skis, so to speak, as it's appeared in the rest of their career. Your Ernie Clements, your Nathan Lucases, even George Springer. Um, no way this was expected that he would play to this level. David Schneider's back being the babe. Tyler
Yeah.
Heine. I mean, it's true. I mean, you name the player, Loperfido, every single guy. So it's the little guy who's doing this. And at the end of the day, isn't that a better story, anyways? Isn't it a better story when you don't have Tarek Skubal heading your rotation? I mean, it was always Gosman, but he's kind of morphed into just a really good pitcher, rather than that top of the line ace guy. So are they getting the respect from the national media? No, they're not. They're definitely not. We've seen that when the Yankees came in, Michael Kay, the whole the whole routine about run differential, which is slowly evening out between the two teams as
Yeah,
the
absolutely.
days go by. So No, they're not getting that respect. And to be honest with you, I think if you're a Blue Jay fan, I think that's more fun. It's more enjoyable that way. So now you've got to earn it. So like you say, are people waiting for the shoe to drop? Sure, because traditionally need those guys at the top of the rotation, and you need Vladdy to be one of the best in baseball, excuse me. Outside of what Bo's doing, it's a team effort. It's just a 1 through 9 team effort, and like I said, at the end of the day, I think that's a more enjoyable way to win than it is just to be led by 2 or 3 guys or your Aaron Judge type players that carry you the whole way. So um, respect comes if you win, and there's 2 months to find out.
Yeah, and you mentioned it, the rotation. Um, you go with 5 guys, and what's amazing is that Shane Bieber is finishing up his injury rehab from Tommy John surgery, which was in April of 24. So he's had enough time. He's had 16 months, but he's got 1 start left, I believe, and then he'll be in the rotation. But the question I have for you, and you know how much I love the 6-man rotation
I've
concept.
never heard that before.
Yeah. Do you believe that? And what a question to have at this time of the season for a team that's contending. Usually teams are looking for a 5th starter. Like, who can we put in the rotation because we're struggling at the back end of the rotation?
And sometimes going to 4-man with off
Right.
days and stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
And now the Jays' dilemma is, do you want to go with a 6-man and give everyone a guaranteed extra day of rest? And I asked Jose Barrios this in the clubhouse last weekend. I said, Jose, if you go to a 6-man rotation, you will have exactly 9 more starts and you will have exactly 32 starts for the season, which you have done for 6 consecutive full seasons. This would be the 7th in a
Insane.
row, 32
Insane.
starts. And he had this big grin and he says, extra days of rest are always good at this time of the year.
Yeah.
And that is, to me, that's all I need to hear to continue the argument for a 6-man rotation. And John, while we were with the Niagara Ironbacks, I think on one of those bus trips, I put together a 6-man rotation through the rest of the season from the trade deadline,
You
not
weren't working on
knowing.
our lineup?
I had already done
Maybe
that.
that was a problem.
Yeah. But I sent it to Pete Walker and I sent it to Schneider. They acknowledged they got it. So they have it. They have the plan in front of them. Now, if they choose not to do that, and they've chosen to ignore my advice many times in the past, a 5-man rotation would leave you with a choice. Who would you bump from that rotation if you were going to put Shane Bieber with his track record, with his 2020 Cy Young Award? If you're going to put him into a 5-man rotation, how do you handle that, Mal?
Well, that's the question. I mean, clearly the guy has to come out as Lauer, and how do you do that? I mean, he's possibly been your best guy, which defies all reality. Again, back to what we were just talking about. I didn't mention him in the last litany of guys who are playing over their head, but he might be the #1 guy on the list. I mean, he's got a sub 3 ERA. It's just ridiculous. But he's probably the guy that comes out. It becomes your long man. He's another lefty out there. But I, to me, I think your solution is right. I think you're trying to win this whole thing, and unless something crazy happens in August, if you go to a 6-man and all of a sudden you find yourself a game behind someone heading into September, you can always adjust. But given the fact that you've got this little bit of cushion, why wouldn't you give these guys an extra bit of rest? Try and get them as, ready for playoff baseball, feeling as good as they possibly can, and keep Lauer going with everybody else. And Bieber comes in. To me, it just makes a lot of sense, Griff. And if you want to skip Lauer on occasion for an off day,
Yeah. Well, you
you
don't
can
have
do
to
that.
under my plan.
What's that?
You don't have to on my plan.
Okay. But is there too
But
much rest for guys?
yeah, the maximum is, I think there's 2 guys that have a start on 6 days rest, so on their 7th day. That might be a little much, But by and large, you see Gosman coming out of the All-Star break and he pitches so well and he goes, oh, that extra rest really did me some good. And Barrios. And one of the reasons that bullpens have become so important in the postseason is because rotations are gassed by the time they get to October. So if you're the only group with a 6-man rotation in the final 2 months, as the Blue Jays would be, maybe you change that trend. Maybe you don't need the 4 or 5 guys that you can throw out there after a 4-inning start by one of your really exhausted starting pitchers, because down the stretch they were being ridden like a rented mule. Maybe you can change that trend and have your good starting pitchers rested through the final 2 months. All of a sudden they become 6-inning into the 7th type guys, and you could narrow down that bullpen because they now have 4 or 5, in my opinion, 4 or 5, 6 guys maybe when Sandlin comes back and when Jimmy Garcia comes back, who can be relied upon in leverage situations for 3 consecutive games. So, I mean, there's 2 ways to look at it. You can either imitate the rest of the pack and load up at the trade deadline on relief pitchers so that your bullpen is deeper. But look at the Yankees. They loaded up. They got 4 closers, including the guy who was their World Series closer, who's not even in the picture really right now.
Right.
And they might not even make the playoffs. So how is that working out for Brian Cashman? Is that you load up on your bullpen for the playoffs and you're not going to make the playoffs?
I'll turn it to you. Give me a good reason why you'd keep it at 5-man. What's the reason to keep it other than tradition at this point?
I think because you feel like on a short start you could get Lauer to pitch 3 or 4 innings and there's nobody else out there that you can. I mean, do you want 5 consecutive 1-inning guys coming in after a 4-inning start, or do you want Lauer coming in? The other thing is, if somebody tweaks and has to be backed off a start, Lauer's ready to go in, and you don't have to get the Buffalo Express going, with the limo service bringing your pitcher in, and he's not really prepared, and it had to be lined up on that same day. I think that would be the reason, is you have a legit 6 starter who's not in the rotation, but can be very useful. I mean, that might be the argument that they're going to use.
To me, though, if somebody tweaks, you just go back to the 5. You've got the fallback. You're not forced to keep 6.
Right.
I think, and Griff, the baseball is going to go to 6-man rotation. It's going to happen all across the land, as they say. So why not be ahead of the game at the forefront when you literally have 6 guys now, and to give those guys extra rest? Like, I think your proposal makes so much sense, and I think I'd love to see the Jays give that a run and back these guys off just a little bit. And
when you think about it, the preponderance of relying on a deep bullpen, that started with the Giants in 2010, 12, and 14 when they won the World Series. I mean, they were going 5 or 6 deep, and really they came in with guys that had different arm angles, different skills, and their starters, as good as they were just being counted on for 5 innings max. And then the Royals, the team that beat the Blue Jays in the playoffs, did the same thing.
And
they had
that.
Huge arms out there.
Yeah.
And so now all of a sudden, as you point out, maybe the trend is going to go back the other way, and there needs to be a leader in that regard, and maybe the Blue Jays could be that.
I'd love to see it. I like your thinking.
So the other question, and I mentioned it in the long answer to the rotation question, is the Yankees and the Red Sox. Who do you think's a bigger threat for the division? I know the Yankees, in baseball with 50 games left, whatever it is, 48, 47, it can turn around in a hurry. And so you can't count the Yankees out. But who to you, and how do you explain the Red Sox after getting rid of Rafael Devers becoming a threat? Which of those two teams do you like to challenge the Jays for the division? And how do you explain the Red Sox?
I like the Yankees to challenge for the division. Clearly, I think they're I think they're the better team. Obviously, they could not be playing worse at this stage. There's a lot of reason to be concerned about their attention to detail these days. Defensively, you know, they're the anti-run prevention team as we speak, but they've got the big boys and the juice to get back into this thing without a doubt. How do you explain the Red Sox? They got a lot of good young players. There's a lot of good young players there, and you've got to like the outlook if they get back to spending money like the Red Sox can about what they should be and should never have fallen back to this sort of, austerity program they've been on for a long time. I think this is the Red Sox run to get into the race, and I think you'll see them fall back. I just don't think they're strong enough this year. I think it's the Yankees are bust in this division, challenging the Jays, and I think the Yankees will challenge the Jays. I think um, the additions they made to the back of that bullpen, although not sure their deployment with the way they're doing it right now with Devin Williams is very smart, um, but that's going to change. I think that'll change. How long, how long is Aaron Boone going to be at the helm of this thing? It's getting late in the year, but wouldn't shock me if somebody decided to make a change in that regard to just change the look of what's going on there. But to me, the Yankees are the clear class from a talent perspective. Uh, I don't see the Red Sox making a legitimate push for the division. I mean, I suppose you could say they are
Yeah.
right now, but they've won a whole lot of baseball games lately. I think better days are to come for the Red Sox. It's just not going to be necessarily in this season. That's
Yeah.
maybe I'm wrong. I'm not sure what you think.
I think that there are two magic numbers for the Yankees, and one of them involves Aaron Boone's tenure as manager.
Yeah,
Uh, but I don't know if that would make a huge difference. I mean, I think that the Red Sox are on a tremendous roll. I agree with you that it's a little early for them. I mean, they've got great talent. How would anyone in New England have thought that trading away Jaron Duran was a good idea at the trade deadline? You know, and they did it, which is thankfully for their status as contenders all of a sudden. But I don't think their bullpen, and Tanner Houck just went and is having Tommy John surgery. I don't think they're deep enough in the bullpen or the rotation. And Garrett Crochet is like unlike anyone that the Blue Jays have, and we've discussed that. They don't have a number one ace, and he's like top 3 Cy Young right now.
yep.
But again, he's going to have more innings pitched by the end of the year than he's ever had because he was a reliever, and in the minors, you didn't even play in the month of
We
September.
shut it down last year
Yeah.
too. Yeah.
So yeah, I'm not sure that either of those teams,
Now,
like the Jays would have to fall back, and the winner of that division would have to be like 89, 90, 91 wins, which I don't see because there's a lot of misconception that the AL East is the weakest it's ever been. And you do a little research early in the year in May when we were talking about it, the AL East was 15 games under 500 and at the bottom of the 6 divisions. And right now they're plus 22 above 500. There was a run by the Jays, of course, and a run by the Red Sox. The Orioles are playing better after they were so bad at the beginning of the season. The Yankees are slumping, and the Rays are exactly what we thought they were. They were going to start quickly and then fade because they're playing in a minor league ballpark. It gets stinking hot, and we know about playing in stinking hot weather, don't we, Mal?
still recovering. Still recovering.
Yes.
Whew.
But so I'm not sure whether any of those teams, either of those teams, the Yankees or the Red Sox, are going to put on a charge. If they play above 500 and the Jays slump for some reason, then it could become a race.
I'll tell you this though, sign me up for a 3-way race coming into September with those 3 teams, Yankees, Red Sox, Blue Jays. That's just fun. You know what I mean? The big boys, the Yankees and the Red Sox chasing down the Blue Jays is a lot of fun.
But I honestly believe because of the struggles of the Yankees that you might have 2 wild card teams out of the West. because they do have the Mariners with probably the best rotation, and they do have the Texas Rangers coming on strong, and they got Bochy, and they do have the Houston Astros. So, if you're struggling and you're looking at the AL East and you're not looking at the wild card, one of those two teams is going to get bumped. So there won't be two AL East teams. There'll be two AL West and the three division winners, and then either the Jays, Yankees, or Red Sox as a wild card. Yeah. So, that's an interesting discussion. And to say that the Jays, that nobody's going to put on a huge charge. Like the Yankees can't make any moves. We've seen what they have, right? I mean, all of a sudden, it's not like they're going to add somebody and he's going to propel them to a 18-2 record over 20 games, that sort of thing.
Yeah, there's no August deals anymore.
Right.
Or even waiver claims you can't use in the playoffs. All of
Like
Kingman back in the day. Those are done.
Yeah, the way the Jays got David Cohn, I think Ricky Henderson was the same. Let's see. Now, the trade deadline. How much credit does Ross Atkins deserve for the list of players that joined the team? We talked about the need for two strong arms in the bullpen, one starting pitcher for the back end of the rotation, and maybe one hitter. Yeah, it wasn't really a necessity, but they got Sir Anthony Dominguez, and they got
Barland,
from the Twins, and they threw Ty France in to replace Will Wagner. They're both not great defenders, and they're limited in their positions. But one's a right-hand hitter, one's a left-hand hitter. So there was a reason for getting Ty France over Will Wagner. And then they got Shane Bieber, who to me is a wild card. I mean, he's not even on the 40-man roster. He's on the 60-day IL. They didn't have to make a roster move. Now, when he comes in and he's ready, they'll have to make that move. But how much credit does Ross deserve for all of this?
It's funny. On the one hand, I didn't feel like they did enough. Like, as I said, coming into the deadline, they have to pounce. They have to pounce. They're playing over their skis. The team isn't as good. They've been fortunate. They've got to take advantage of this and really build up this roster now that they're in first place. I didn't like the additions of the bullpen arms per se. I thought they could have done better. That being said, the Bieber move is exactly the type of move I love. That is the go for it move. That is the, risky, high ceiling. That's exactly the move you got to make if you're trying to win a World Series. You're not just trying to reach the playoffs. You're not trying to, and the bullpen arms feel like they just kind of got some depth there and wouldn't pay the price necessarily, or I'm not even sure they had to pay the price. Like other guys went for similar, packages or less. So, I mean, Dominguez and Varland, but the Bieber move I thought was excellent. I think that's the kind of move you make if you're really trying to go for it. Could that blow up? Yes, but I'm okay with that one. And actually, I don't think it's going to blow up. He had Tommy John surgery. He didn't. It's not labor.
Yeah.
It's just whether he's ready to go now at that elite level.
I mean, Tommy John surgery is no longer a specter hanging over a guy's head. And this has been 16 months. It's not like he's trying to rush the process.
The only issue is he built up enough? Will he be built up enough to really be the best version of himself? Or does that come in 2026?
Now, if he is the best version of himself, do you replace, because he has a $16 million player option with a $4 million buyout. So if he doesn't take it, he gets $4 million from the club, and then he can go look for another deal. I mean, to me, if he has a good final 8 or 9 starts and they win the division, they're going to have to replace that option with a longer term deal. Do you think that that's the way they're thinking about it?
The Jays, I'd say yes. I mean, if you're looking at best case scenario, he's turning down the offer clearly, and you hope he does because that means he's pitched his ass off in
Yeah.
September. Um, and that's exactly the type of guy you're trying to bring in here while you are losing other guys in that rotation. And you've got some young players coming up, the Yaseviches, the Manoas. Let's not forget about what he could possibly be. Um, Bieber's the type of guy that could be a perfect fit. And going into next year with the guys that are still there, you're talking about possibly the best rotation in the game, among the top rotations in the game. So I think the Bieber play, it's I love it all. They gave up a good prospect, but not the top guy. Um, I thought the trade was great. It's like I said, so I'll give him a B down the middle, so to speak. I would have
Yeah.
liked to seen them do something more solidify that back end of the bullpen because there's a lot of guys who can go either way back there, including
Uh, yeah, that discussion you just gave reminded me of in John Schneider's office on the weekend, and hearing him talk about arguments against the six-man rotation is that can you really get by with seven men in the bullpen? I mean, like, come on. Like the eighth man in the bullpen is the guy who comes in and mops the floor
yep.
in a game that's already out of reach, either one way or the other. Now, would you rather have that eighth man in the bullpen or a sixth starter who's giving everyone rest, who's allowing your guys to be fresher and go into the sixth inning? Which one would you rather have?
Of
Clearly,
course.
you would rather have the sixth starter than the eighth reliever.
And if something goes crazy for a weekend, you can bring the eighth guy up. You know what I mean? Like,
Plus, plus in September, you get to add a pitcher.
yeah. So I
For
mean,
the
what's
final month, you're going to have that ability to go with the same number of bullpen guys. So it's not an argument.
yeah.
And
Nice
I
try, John. Nice try.
pressed the bullshit buzzer on Schneider at that point. But um, now we didn't talk, and in on griffstopitch.com when I wrote about it, I didn't mention any of the departing prospects because we've discussed this many times. I don't care whether Manchester, New Hampshire has a winning team or they got diminished by trading one of their players. It's all about the major league team. It's all about winning and making the playoffs at the major league level. And inventory is inventory in the minor leagues. So when they gave up Cal Steven, who was a great prospect, he was selected second in the 24 draft.
Yep.
Will Wagner, Alan Roden, Warren Watts Brown, who was at Double A New Hampshire,
Yep.
23 years old. He was an up and comer. He
Yep.
had a pretty good record this year, as was expected of him. Kendry Rojas. But they still hung on to Arjun Namala, Trey Savage, Ricky Tiedemann, Johnny King, and you mentioned Manoa. So what do you think? Do you think it should be considered as any sort of a factor if any of those players they gave up ends up having a solid career in the big leagues?
I think it's always a factor, but again, you have to seize the moment. You know what I mean? You have to. And I'm not so they didn't empty the farm system. Let's like you just said. Um, I probably would have been a proponent of doing a little bit more to get a better reliever. So perhaps they're protecting the farm a little too much, in my opinion. But I think I think they're in a good spot. They're in a good spot. They're in a good spot. They still got a number of prospects where, hey, let's go back 1 year, 2 years. This they didn't have much. Um, they've been fortunate that this pitching crop has really developed so far. That's a lot where it's coming from, right? Your high-end pitchers that they've got as prospects. So um, I, I don't think you can look at it. It's like back in the day, right? What did Gillick do? Ricky Henderson, Steve Carsey. It could have went a million different ways, right? Um, what was the Jeff Kent trade? David Cohn. I mean, Jeff
Yeah.
Kent went on to have a Hall of Fame career, so to speak. Do you regret it? No, you don't regret it. So I think the risks they've taken are very fair for where they're at. And like I said, I'm not so sure. I'd have probably done a little bit more. So you can't worry
Here's
about that. You didn't trade away Guerrero or Bichette on their way up.
Here's a number that might surprise you or might not, is that heading into Colorado, heading to Denver for the series against the Rockies, the Blue Jays had $75.6 million on the IL.
That's awesome, honestly, because that tells you you're playing big boy baseball like Rogers should be.
Yeah.
You don't want that, but the fact
No.
that you can afford to do that and still be in first place tells you that you have the ability to play, in a different stratosphere than a lot of other teams
Yeah.
do. So
I mean, there were years that I covered and that you worked there where they didn't even have a total payroll of $75.6 million.
when I first got there with Ricciardi, it was far less than that. It was 50 million or something like that. You know what I mean? Like, to have that on the sideline tells you how far the whole organization has come. And kudos to Rogers for finally stepping up
Yeah.
to where they should be.
Funny you mentioned JP Ricciardi. I was on TSN radio this morning at 8:15, and I thought they were going to ask about the trade deadline, blah blah blah. They were just asking about the current Jays, and then I go on Twitter, and the guy coming on after me was JP Ricciardi to talk about all those other things.
On TSN?
Yeah, I didn't know he was going on. I might have ripped him, or I might have told a story about his dad being my best friend, but I didn't know. But it's just funny you mentioned him, and he was on with me this morning. Well, not with me, but
Who do you want to talk about the trade deadline? Rich Griffin or JP Ricciardi? Come on.
But the $75 million, 75.6 million that's on the IL, the cliche is that when guys come back from injury after the trade deadline, it's like adding players.
Yeah, right.
So let's go down that list. I mean, that's a cliche because you had them at the beginning of the year.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
didn't
yeah.
want them to get hurt. It's not like a strategy.
Right.
But George Springer, 24, Andres Jimenez, 10.5 million, Bieber, 10 million. Santander's out. He's not coming back. Jimmy Garcia, we don't know when he's coming back. Manoah is probably going to be available. He seems to be doing well on his rehab, but do you need him this year? Maybe he comes to training camp next year with a fresh attitude, with a strong arm ready to go, and maybe fill in a Chris Bassett spot or something. Sandlin, we talked about. Francis, where nobody's counting on him for anything. And Burr had surgery, and
At least, maybe due to my recommendation, we've finally seen the end of that Bowden Francis infomercial every Blue Jay game.
Yeah, that disappeared in a hurry.
Right away. Thank you.
Yes. Thanks, Mal. Appreciate it. Now it brings us to, and let me just move my mic here for those watching. Here we go.
Oh,
Ironbacks.
nice shirt.
Niagara Ironbacks, and after a summer of wearing this under my uniform, this T-shirt under my uniform, it just now has come clean in the washing machine.
I know.
Oh man,
What
35 degrees every day, crossing over to U.S. destinations half the time. I have never had a summer with as much entertainment and fun and enthusiasm and talent, surrounded by as much talent as we had with the Niagara Ironbacks. And for those who haven't been paying attention, Mal is the GM and part owner, co-owner of the expansion Niagara Ironbacks of the Perfect Game Summer Collegiate Baseball League, which I was not aware was so deep in talent. 11 players were drafted from that league in the July draft.
Yeah, 2 in the first round.
Yeah, that's pretty damn good. And yet you entrusted that group to me. I couldn't figure that out.
I ran out of choices.
I'm the only guy who covered the opening press conference and then managed.
That's right.
But the disadvantage of being an expansion team, and anyone who follows any pro sport, you have an expansion team. Imagine if there was no expansion draft.
Right.
Now you're starting from scratch. And this is what happened to your
I should have lobbied for
Niagara
that.
Ironbacks, is that there was no expansion draft. So you had no base of players to choose from. And that put us at a disadvantage. But to me, the fact that we finished as strong as anyone in baseball, we knocked teams out. We knocked teams that thought they were going to be in the playoffs out. We swept Auburn. We in a doubleheader on a Sunday at home. We beat Geneva 4 times after they said MAGA, 51st state, FAFO, which someone had to explain to me.
That's right.
And we beat them 4 times
mean?
and passed them in the standings. Those are some of the highlights. And it renewed my faith in baseball as shaping character for young men. And it was really terrific. I thank you for that, Mal.
Well, oh, geez, I thank you. I mean, your ability to keep that clubhouse positive, winning 3 games in June is a testament to your skills. Just how to relate to people, how to treat people, and how to keep them focused. I mean, it was impressive to watch.
Except for stealing third with 2 out.
Well, we've had a few
left-hand
discussions
hitter.
on the base running, but I mean, at the end of the day, probably didn't mean a playoff spot or not. So,
No, clearly did
but
not.
I would say the most reward. There was a lot of challenges in year one, just operationally, just never mind, and just continuously putting that roster together. But for clearly the best part is the players, the young men that are there to bust their rear ends. The most rewarding part was just seeing them play hard day after day, and just our ability to compete and get better and build on that and keep these guys interested. I just love those guys in that clubhouse. I mean, that's what you're there for. That's what that product is all about. And that's what we want to be. Like I mentioned at the end of the year, we want to be players first, and we want them to want to come here because of opportunity that exists here. And never mind, it's just fun to play. It's fun to play in Canada, and it's fun to play where we play and play for, our organization. So my hat goes off to you, and that was a one long hot summer. But there's few places on this planet, I will tell you, if you've never experienced it, and I'm sure you will agree with me, on the bus, heading on the road trip, going to win a ball game, and if you win a ball game, that bus ride home, it's just that's baseball. There's
It's magic.
nothing better, nothing better. So,
But one of my favorite moments was, and we started the year with a Japanese infielder, with an Australian center fielder, with 4, I think, maybe more than 4 American players.
5 maybe, yeah.
But the rest of them were all kids that maybe wouldn't have had a place to play in the summer league because they would have had to go to the States, Upper New
Yep.
York. And you gave them that opportunity, and hopefully, I'm just guessing that you're going to do it again next year.
Yeah.
And that the word of mouth among the really talented, and they're all NCAA kids with eligibility left. We played 45 games and 53 games in stinking hot weather.
Yeah.
1 rain out, which you said was an amazing fact of life that one couldn't expect in a.
You usually get a bunch more. Yeah.
But my favorite moment was beating Geneva, who are the MAGA people, 4-3, and having them still yelling at us over the fence. And me wanting to point out that Eli Thompson and Marcus Butts, the pitcher and catcher, were from North Dakota. So God bless you for
We're
yelling
definitely
at us.
honorary Canadians at that moment.
Honorary Canadians at this point in time. Anyway, that will wrap up another episode of Exit Philosophy. And thanks everyone for listening, and thanks Mal for a summer that I won't forget, and for co-hosting.
Whether you want to or not.
Yeah, right. All right. Thanks everyone for listening.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mal.